Guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we are going to learn SQL from scratch. So if you have no previous experience of SQL, then this video is going to be perfect for you. Now, let's start off first and foremost with right from the basics. So this first chapter is going to be getting you guys set up. When you first log into SQL, so I'm using PostgreSQL here to be clear. We have here servers, okay? So the first we need to do is we need to connect to the server. Now, in order to connect to the server here, you need to type in your password. So I'm just going to very quickly type in my passwords. Excellent. And now you can see that we have access to the server. We're now connected. Now, the first thing that we need to do is we currently, if I go to my left-hand pane here, schemas is where you find your tables, okay? You'll see that under tables there, if I go to the tables subsection, there is none, right? So as it stands, there's nothing to look at. There's no data. So what I actually need to do is I need to actually create a database. So in order to do that, I right click, create database, and I'm gonna call this teaching DB, right? Because this is a tutorial database. So what will happen now, you can see there, if I go onto the right hand side, if we go click on the SQL pane, you can see here essentially the SQL code to create the database. We click save, voila, there we have it. So that's our first step, okay? We've connected to the server and we have created our database. But we need some information to put into our database. We need some schemas, right? So that's exactly what we're gonna do now. So what we need to do is input some data, right? We need some tables to query. So next to Object Explorer here, we're gonna click on this icon, which is the query tool. So the query tool will give you this canvas. And this is essentially how we create SQL statements. But as I said, we need to get some data in. So what I'm gonna do is I already have a SQL script set up here, and I will leave all of this information for you guys to easily download. This will be in the description box. But this is my MacBook here, and I'm just gonna go to myself. I'm gonna go to my desktop, SQL tutorials, and then you can see there that I have this full SQL script, right? So this script basically, you'll see the tables in a moment, basically refers to property rental market. And you can see here .SQL, which means we know that this is a SQL script. If this had, for example, if we go into one of my, you can see like a PDF file, it won't work, as you can see. The reason why these are gray is because these are not SQL scripts. Whereas you can see here, .SQL tells us, okay, it's a script, and that's why we can click on it. So now I open this script and voila, here we have it. This is my script in order to implement some tables. So I'm just gonna break a few things down for you guys so that you can easily understand. What this is basically saying first and foremost is that if these tables already exist, delete them, get rid of them, okay? So that's what the drop table, if it exists, right? And remember that if it exists is the conditional statement. What I'm saying is that if this table already exists, I want you to check in the schemas under tables. Do we have inspection? If we do, get rid of it, okay? So if we go a little bit further down now, what these create tables are doing here is these are essentially setting up the characteristics of the table. So we're going to create a table, for example, called branch, right? Create table branch. And essentially, the headers here highlighted in blue are our column headers, okay? So branch number, branch street, what's the area, what's the town, what's the postcode. This is telling us what our columns actually are. The second aspect that you can see when we're creating table, it refers to the attributes of that column. So small int means that this is going to be an integer. Varchar basically means that it means variable character, which means it can be a mixture of numerical input and also of string input. Okay, so we're talking about letters and also numbers. You can also see here in brackets 25. So this is a limit on to how many characters can be within that value. And then we have here not null. So not null means this cannot be empty. You can see in terms of area, if we don't know the area of that branch, that's okay. But we need to know the town, the postcode. We have to know this information, hence why it's got here the not null. Okay, and we do this for all of our tables that we want to create. So all of these create table here, same for staff, same for owner, is basically telling you guys, okay, these are the tables that we want to create. These are the column headers that we want. These are maybe a limit on how many characters we want. Some of these cannot be empty. They cannot be blank. So you can see here that we've got a vast array of tables that we're going to use. The second part of this script, or the third part of this script, should I say, is essentially inputting values into these columns. So the best way to think of that is, at the moment, what we've done is we've just got some empty glasses. We've got a glass called inspection, we have a glass called viewing, we have a glass called lease. But there is no drink inside them. It's empty. So what the insert into does is it fills up our cups. It's giving our tables values, right? So if we go back to our example of branch, if you remember the table, it had branch number, okay? So we can see here 101, that's the branch number. The second column header within branch was street. So we can see here, and this was in the format of variable character. And you can see here, as I said to you before, this is a mixture of letters or strings and numbers, qualitative and quantitative data, and so forth that you can see. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. So just to recap here, the first part of our SQL script is saying if these tables exist, get rid of them. It's checking whether these tables exist under here. If they don't exist, or if they do, get rid of them, because I want to create fresh tables. Create table function here is basically saying, give me my new glasses. These are my new glasses, but at the moment, they're empty. So what we actually need to do is fill up our glasses with a drink that we want. And by this is equivalent to putting values into our actual tables that we have created. Okay, now all that's left for us to do is to run the script, and fingers crossed, we should finally have our database built. And there you go. Excellent. So what this says there basically is that this script has worked down to a T, and we now have our tables ready for you guys to see. And we can double check this. So at the moment, it's still showing like there's no tables that exist, and that's because we haven't refreshed it. So if I go to object, I hit refresh, and there we have it. All of our tables that we've just spoken about are now there ready for us to use. So guys, well done. Essentially, you've passed the first stage. We have learned how to set up our SQL database. We've learned today how we can actually create some tables. Now we're ready to pull out some insights. Well done. I'm proud of you guys. Let's keep going. Okay, now we're going to produce our very first SQL statement. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to teach you guys how to use the select statement. So if we click here on the first icon just by Object Explorer, which is query, essentially now this is giving me a new query tool, okay? What it's basically saying is that we can start a whole new SQL query. So as I said to you guys before, we have all these tables, but I have no idea what's actually in them. Let's say we have no idea. We want to get a feel of the data. So the first thing we want to do is just give us an overview of all the information that we have. So how do we do that? Very simple. We have what we call select. Okay, so when the select here turns to purple, we basically know that this is a legitimate function in SQL. We use the asterisk. So the asterisk, which is, or the star, is basically means give us everything. So I want, give me all the information that's available within this table, give me everything in our glass, and let's say from statement says, where do I want it from? Okay, so I want it to use, so at the moment, I want to look at it from branch. So that's exactly what we put here, space, and then we put branch, okay? So the select all says, give me everything which is in that table branch. It will give you all the columns, all rows, every single value. And then all we have left to do now is to execute our query. And voila, there you go. We can see here that essentially this is basically giving us, I'm assuming, some information about our maybe business branches. So we know that we have 4 branches. These are the streets. These are the towns that we operate in. There's their postcode and their telephone numbers. And there are a couple of areas where we don't know where they are. They're blank. So if you remember, we spoke about the not null. So the reason why we have empty values here is because there wasn't a not null when we was defining our table. That means that this can be blank. But in terms of, let's say, for example, the branch street, well, we need to know where we're located. That couldn't be blank. Excellent. So let's say that we want to look at what's in maybe, let's say, our lease. What does that table give us? So to do that, we're just changing from saying, hey, give me everything, but not from branch now. I want everything which is in lease. So that's why I've typed in the word lease here. Once again, we can execute this statement. Wow. Okay. So we can see here that we have a few more rows of information, and it looks to me like this table is basically giving us information about our current properties, which are our current rental properties. As you can see here, property number, we've got the lease number, we've got the tenant number, how much the rent is per month. It looks like how are they paying per month, how much deposit they put down, have they paid it, when did it start, when did it finish. So this is quite a good table actually, because this gives us a real mixture of different types of information. We can see some information, as you can see here, in small integer, as you can see below the heading. We've got some numerical data, some characters, and we've also got some dates. We'll do one more. Let's say I want to see, okay, what staff do we have? Let's give me an overview of the staff, maybe how many staff, maybe it tells us some information about their salary. Excellent. And once again, the select all statement gives me an overview of this table. So guys, well done. You've written your very first SQL statement. We have basically taught you guys how you can get an overview of all of your information using the select statement. Well done. In the next step, I'm going to show you guys how we can pull out specific information. Okay, so we're going to look at how we can pick out specific columns within our tables. But for now, well done. You guys are very much on the road to becoming SQL experts. Good stuff. Okay, so now I'm going to teach you guys how we can basically select specific columns using the select statement. So we're going to stay with, let's say, our table with staff. And let's say I just want to see all of our staff's surname and their first name. So we're going to get rid of the asterisk now. And we're going to put in staff. We've got here surname. I also want to see their first name. So I'm going to again put in staff and I'm going to put in 4 names. Okay. So it's important to remember that you separate it with a comma, because obviously if we don't have the comma, this itself will produce an error because it looks like it's all one word. And obviously we don't have a column like this. Okay. So you make sure you use a comma to separate the different column headers that we want to pull. And then once again, we want it from staff. And then all we need to do now is produce our query, running it, and there you go. We can see who our staff surname and their first name. Okay, let's do another one. If we get, let's say, I don't know, let me do maybe the tenant. So I'm going to get an overview of the tenants table first and foremost using the asterisks as we just taught you guys. And I just want to see maybe all the places, let's say, give me the street, the area, and the town where our tenants are based. So once again, I'm going to use T. I'm going to type out the column headers. So we've got one there, T street, I've got T area, and I've got T town. So this will tell me exactly where we have these properties. Where are these properties located? And I want all of this to come from the tenants table, so that remains. Remember, we separate each column with a comma, and we can execute, and there you go. I can see exactly where all of our tenants are based. Okay, so well done, guys. That's how we can use the select statement to pull out specific columns. You guys are getting there now. Next, I'm going to show you guys how we can maybe select unique values. Right, so let's say now, if you look at this table here, we can see that we have towns, and we can see that, okay, we have maybe multiple tenants in Sunderland, right? We have multiple tenants in Newcastle, but I just want to see in what town our tenants are based. So what I'm saying now is we're going to teach you guys the distinct statement, right? So when we use select distinct, it will give us the unique values within our table, right? So basically it will avoid duplication. Okay, so what I'm saying is I just want to see where all of our tenants, where our tenants are based. I don't want you to keep giving us, if we know we have tenants in Sunderland, I don't want to see this 3 times like what we can here. So in order to prevent that, we use a distinct statement alongside select to provide us with the unique values. So what I'm going to say is select distinct, then I put the column town, and again we're using the tenant table. So if I now run this query, voila, there you can see, I can see exactly which towns my tenants are based in. It will only give us that town once. It avoids duplication, if you like. Let's do another one just to make sure that you guys understand this well. If I go to, and I don't know, let's look at properties for rent. Let's have a look at that table. So hold on while I just get this table up. Okay, great. So the properties that we have up for rent at the moment, let's say, yeah, once again, let's see what town are they in. So I will use my distinct value again. Sorry, distinct function. So select distinct, and then I'm gonna type in the column that I want, which is town, which is prop town. So once again, this will give me the unique value within this column. It will only produce that value once. And there you go. I can see exactly where the properties that we have up for rent, where are they based? Okay, so that's it, guys. You guys have essentially learned the very first steps of SQL. You now know how to select all the information from a table by using the asterisks. And then, as you can see here, we can also select specific columns within our table by literally just typing out the column header, and then we can use a comma to separate our columns if we want to take out more than one column. And then we can use the distinct function to find our unique values within a specific table, like so. So that's it, guys. That concludes chapter 2. This is the basics of the select statement. It's quite easy, right? Well done. You guys are doing good. Join me for the next section where we look at how we can organize and filter our data. Welcome back. Chapter 3. And in this chapter, we're going to look at how we can organize and filter our data on SQL. So, otherwise known as SQL. So, I'm going to kick off how we do this. Essentially, is the first thing we're going to learn is the where clause. So I'm going to just explain this to you. So you can think of it as we have a cake, right? We have a cake and we want a slice of cake, essentially. And this is exactly what we're doing when we're using the where clause, all right? Or the other way you can think of it is when you're using the filter option within Microsoft Excel, okay? We're taking a slice of our information. We only want to look at a specific subset. That's exactly what the where clause does. So let's see how we can apply this. Okay, so these are all my properties for rent, but let's say that at the moment that we think that we have a really good chance of doing well in the rental market within, I don't know, let's say Newcastle, right? So what I'm going to do here is say, give me everything, okay? I want to select, give me everything in terms of properties to rent. So from the prop for rent table, and this is where we filter information using where. So where, let's say our properties are located in, let's say, Newcastle, right? So what I'm saying is, give me all our properties that we have based in Newcastle to rent. And there you have it. You can see there, we've got a slice of our information, okay? So what the where clause does is filter what we see, the data. Let's give you guys another couple of examples of how we can further advance the where clause. So you guys know how to use the where clause, how to filter information on a basic level. Let's get rid of this for a minute. So I could delete this, but another thing that you can do if you want to essentially to eradicate a statement within SQL is just use the /. Maybe that doesn't work on Postgres. Okay, we can just use a couple of double hyphens there, and that will just remove that statement. So now, if I run this, we get everything again. If I take away the couple of hyphens, the filter statement, the where clause kicks in again, right? But let's just get rid of this for a moment. Let's just go back to an overview of all our properties to rent. What we could do here is use comparison operators in our where clause. So comparison operators are a mathematical function. Are mathematical functions such as, and I'm going to put on the screen, equal to. It could be less than, which means less than. In fact, I'm going to get rid of this. Let's make this easier for you. Less than, we have greater than, we have not equal to, we have less than or equal to. So this is less than or equal to, and then we have greater than or equal to. So whenever we use a comparison operator, we're essentially comparing it against a criteria, okay? So let's say I want to see all the properties that we have to rent where the council tax is greater than, let's say greater than 200. So how do I do that? It may be that, for example, our tenants have a specific budget. So we want to filter properties only to what suits their criteria, okay? So let's just say that they're happy to, I don't know, have homes where the council tax is over £200. Or actually, let's make it easier. Let's say where the rent is less than £600. My client is looking for properties less than £600, right? So give me everything from properties to rent. We're going to use the where clause again. Where, and this is now we're going to use the column heading which is prop for rent. So we type that in, is less than or equal to, let's say, 600. Okay? There you go. And this gives me all the properties within my client's budget. Okay, so that's how we can further use the where clause, not only just to filter information, but we can also use it in conjunction with comparison operators when we want to get that little bit more detail. Well done, guys. You're doing well so far. So we could also use the where clause in conjunction with logical operators, right? So logical operators refer to Boolean terms such as and I'll just put it here so we can just know what these are. And it could be or. These are examples of logical operators, okay? Or we could even use not, right? So we're going to integrate this into a statement. So let's say, okay, we've got our client. They want to rent a property which is less than £600, and maybe alongside that they don't want to pay more than, I don't know, 380 in council tax, right? So what we can do here is say where we've already got our statement for in terms of properties less than 600, and we're going to add in our and statement. So and, right? So what we're saying is and where the properties are less than 600, and for example the council tax, and we'll type this out, is less than or equal to £300. Okay, so we're gonna go £300. Okay, so what I'm saying here, and let's see what this gives us. Oh, I've got an error in my statement here. That's because I didn't take out my operators. That's my mistake, guys. Let's go again. Excellent. There you have it. Right. So now I've narrowed down my criteria for my client. So now what we're seeing is all the properties within my client's monthly budget, but also where the council tax is deemed affordable for them. Okay. So this is the example now where you can use the where clause alongside logical operators. Okay. Let's say that, I don't know, maybe our client has a range of, they want to look at properties within a specific range or let's say a specific amount of rooms. We can use our where clause to achieve this again. So once again, we've got overview of all our properties. We can use the where clause to say where the property rooms, let's say, so we're using our column, prop rooms is between, let's say, 2 and 5 bedrooms. Okay, so what I'm saying here, give me all of the properties where they have between 2 and 5 bedrooms. Let's give this a go. And there you go. I've got the properties within our client's range. So essentially what we're doing here is we are selecting properties within a range using the where clause. Our client has come to us and said, actually, you know what? I only want to live in Newcastle and Durham. And in order to achieve that, we can use the in function. So again, I want all the properties, give me all the properties where they are located. So this is where we use the in function, open brackets, and state specifically the towns where your client is happy to live, or city, should I say. Newcastle, they're happy to live, and they're happy to live in Sunderland. SQL is very pedantic, so you have to be very, very precise here. So what I'm saying is where our town is in Newcastle or Sunderland, wherever we have properties in Newcastle and Sunderland, give me those. And there you have it. I've got all the properties that potentially could be of use for our client. We could also use, in conjunction with in our where clause, the wildcard function, right? So let's say that, I don't know, my client has kids and they're only willing to live within a certain postcode, a certain radius, okay? So let's say my client said, you know what? I want to live in a NE postcode, okay? So we could use wildcard to do that in our where clause. So what we could say is select all the properties, give me all the properties where we're going to say the postcode, P code is where the postcode, and here we're going to use the wildcard function, like. So that means it's going to essentially search for all of the values within the postcode which match or are similar to our criteria, and then we put it again in with the apostrophe. So I'm going to say NE, and then what I'm going to do is put a percentage sign. Okay, what that percentage sign is saying is the first two values must be NE, and then everything else comes after it. Okay, so if we execute our statement, which hasn't quite worked because I have typed in our column heading wrong. As you can see there, now it gives us all of the properties that start with an NE postcode. Okay, if for example, and I'll just comment this out, if I go back to get an overview of the table again. Okay, give me all of the properties that have maybe a 9 in it, right? So we could just say, well, if I want the properties that have a 9 in it, I will take out, let's make sure we have it up and ready. I am going to put a 9, and I'm going to put the percentage sign at either end of the 9. So what I'm saying is that the 9 isn't the beginning of the string, and it's not the end of the string, it's in between. And if we run that, it should give us, for example, a property like the one here, DH5 9LT, should come up because the 9 is in between. It's embedded within the postcode. Let's give this a go. There you have it. Excellent. Okay, so what the percentage sign does is, depending on where you put the percentage, will depend on how our wildcard works. So anything which comes after the percentage sign means that it must start with these specific characters. If I put the percentage sign at the end, like so, it means it will end with these two characters. And if I put percentage sign in between, it means that these characters are embedded within those values, right? So that's how we can use the wildcard statement in conjunction with our where clause. And that's it. Well done, guys. You guys have learned how to use the where clause. Not only can you just filter your information, you can filter your information using logical operators. So by that, we're talking about and or. We can use comparison operators. And actually, I'll type this up on the screen again for you. So we can use logical operators, where clause, so and or. We can use comparison operators such as greater than and equal to, or less than, and we can use wildcard statements in conjunction such as the like, and then let's say we're going to start with AS characters and then percentage sign. Okay, so any of these operator functions can be used in conjunction with the where clause to really drill down on our information and make sure we get exactly what we want. You guys must be starting to feel exhausted now, but you must also be starting to feel like you're starting to get the hang of this, okay? SQL is very, very logical. Just logical steps. All we're doing here, select the information. Where do we want it from? What are the specific information that we want from our data? Okay, you should be able to see exactly how we're doing this now. Well done, guys. In the next step, I'm going to show you guys as part of this section how we can use the order and the group by functions. Okay, so I'm going to show you guys now how we can use the order function. All right. So I was getting bored of basically looking at our rental properties. I want to look at the owners of the properties now. So I want to see for all of our landlords, I'm assuming, because this is the owners table, I want to see, well, how much are they paying? But I want it in order. So you can think of this is where you, as the sort. This would be the equivalent to doing sort in Excel. So give me all of the owner's information, but I want you to sort this based on their owner's fee, which is OW fee, in descending order, going from highest to lowest. So what we do here is select all from owners, and we use the order by. So this is the equivalent to saying in Excel, like what I spoke about, how we wish to sort out information. And I want to do that via the fee. But here's a key thing. I want it to be descending. So what I need to put by order by space, and I believe, yeah, it'll be by descending. So what this is going to do is rearrange this table based on the owner's fee, highest to lowest. Let's give it a go. Right, so yeah, this is my own fault here. So order by owner's fee, descending. There you go. Now this should work perfectly. There you have it. And I can see there all of my landlords, and based on their ownership fee, highest to lowest. Maybe I want to look at this from lowest to highest. So now I change my order by function to have ASC, which means ascending. So now it's going to go from lowest to highest. So what we should see is this order reverse. And I'll give this a go. There you have it. But I could do this in a far easier way too, right? I don't actually have to put ascending there. I could just go. So another way you could do this is doing it numerically, the order by. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 8 columns. So what you can also do is just put the number 8. And what this is going to do is order, and then I'm going to put maybe descending, is going to order, again, this table from highest to lowest based on ownership fee, because all I've done is put order by 8 descending. If we give it a go, there you have it, right? So those are the ways, guys, that you can use the order by function to sort your data. You can either type in the actual column header directly, like what I'm doing here, and then you can use the ascending, descending, depending on if you want to go highest to lowest or lowest to high, or you could just use the equivalent numerical column value. So if, let's say, my postcode is in the 7th column, then we just put number 7, and it gives you that in order. Well done, guys. You've now learned how to do the order function. We've got one more thing that I need to teach you guys in this section, and that's the group by. Okay, so the final thing I want to show you guys in this chapter is the group by clause. So the group by clause is a way that we can specifically summarize our data. So if you think of, let's say, the English Premier League, you can see how many games a team has won, lost, drawn, their points. But the key point of what they're doing essentially there is they're grouping those stats by each team, essentially using the group by clause. And we're going to do something very similar now. So to give this a little bit of context and make it easy to understand, let's say this is our table, which gives us, of course, our portfolio of our properties. Let's just say I want to know, I don't know, in general, how much rent we've taken so far. We'll give this an alias. We'll call it, I don't know, rental sum. And let's say also I want to know, out of all the properties in our portfolio, what's the highest amount of rent that we charge? Okay. And we'll call it, I don't know. So here we're using the sum aggregation function and the max aggregation function to give us what is our most expensive property and how much rent are we taking, how much rent have we taken in from all the properties within our portfolio. Okay. Now we can see that we've taken home basically £5,500 in rent, and our most expensive property per month is £600. This is okay. This is not too bad, but this doesn't really give me enough detail. If, let's say, in a use case, we want to maybe see, okay, what areas do we want to maybe increase our portfolio, or maybe what property seems to be more attractive to some of our clients. I can't really get that information from this table at the moment. This doesn't really tell me much. So in order to make this meaningful, we need to use the group by clause, and that's exactly what we're going to do now. So if we say, I want all of this information still, but I want it by property. So this is where I'm going to use the group by clause. And if I'm correct, I think the column is called property number. Maybe as well, I want to know what's our cheapest property that we have on the market too. And call this, I'll just call this cheapest property. Okay. No, that's not the name of the column. Let's see if I can find the name of the column. Property number. There you have it. Let's try again. And there you go. So now I can see, and actually to make it clearer, really what I should do is put the actual property too. So give it the actual property column. There you go. So I can see for each property a breakdown of just how useful it is to our portfolio. Okay, so we can see for property number 2 that we have taken home £1,200 in rent, which is compared to property number 1, double. The value of it to us in terms of how much we're bringing in, it's double the value. We can also see maybe the reason behind that as well is because property number 2 is also one of our most expensive properties. But then we could also say one of our cheapest properties is property number 6 and number 4. But it looks like we're taking home more rent from property 1008. So maybe we'd like to push this property, which is more attractive to some of our clients when they're looking for somewhere to live. Okay, so this just gives a little bit of context of how the group by clause can really add insights, because it allows us to summarize our data in a very specific way in order to gain some plausible conclusions. Hopefully that you guys found that nice and clear. Excellent. Well done. Let's move on. Welcome back, guys. We are now on to chapter 4. And in chapter 4, I'm going to show you guys the basics of aggregation functions and some arithmetics within SQL. So let me explain to you what aggregation functions are. So a few of them that we have here would be like sum, average, min, max, and let's say count. Okay, these are all example of aggregation functions, and what we're going to do is basically I'm going to give you guys a couple of examples of how these work. Right, so here is my table of leases, of rentals. I want to know what's, for example, the average rental price. So I'm going to use the average function here. We're going to input in the rental column. And remember, an alias will give it a name. So if I just run my query like this, then the result will, as you can see, it will give me the average, but that doesn't mean anything to me because we don't know what that is. So what we need to do is give it an alias. So I'm going to say this is, we use as, and then we go average rental, take out the string, as average rental price. Okay. That makes more sense to somebody now. Now I know exactly what this aggregation function is showing me. And if we want it again, we can see exactly what that is. Excellent. Okay, maybe I want to know what's our minimum and what's our maximum rents per month. Okay, so I don't know. What I'm going to do is say, we're going to use the max function here. Give me the maximum rent per month. Okay, and again, we're going to use the alias there. I'm going to call this max rent. And give me the minimum rent. And we're going to use the minimum function here. and we're gonna then put in using the rental column. I'm gonna call this, I don't know, min rent. And maybe as well, I want to know, let's say, the maximum deposit as well. Okay, so give me as well the maximum deposit amount that someone has to put down. Okay, so, and then we'll call this max deposit, right? And there you go. So I can see what the max rental price is. I can see the minimum, so I can see the range, like what's the two opposite ends of the scales in terms of the rental market. And I can also see what's the maximum deposit that someone needs to put down. Okay, excellent. So that's how we can use some of our aggregation functions. Let's also use the sum function as well, so you guys know exactly how to use that. So maybe at the moment, how much per month are we generating? Let's say I'm a landlord. How much per month am I generating in rent? Okay, so we can just use the sum function now, and this will give us, and we'll say total, and we'll call it total rent per month using the sum function, and there you go. So we are taking home £5,400 per month in rent. Doesn't seem too bad, to be honest. Sounds pretty good. So there you have it, guys. There's how we can use aggregation functions within SQL. It's really not too bad, is it? Next, I'm going to show you guys how we can actually do some really basic arithmetics. Maybe we want to see what the total cost is for, let's say, somebody moving into a property. So maybe we'll do that next. So let's say that, we said that we want someone to put down the 1 month's rent, and also they need to put down their deposit amount. Okay, so we want to know exactly how much it will cost for someone to move in, and we call it the initial fee. Okay, and alongside the initial fee, I still want to know the property number, and maybe I want to know the tenant number too. So I'm trying to get a flavor of what's it going to cost for someone to move in at all of these sites. And there we have it. We can see there the initial fee, where that property is, and who the tenant is. Okay, so we can see here that we can use arithmetic equations in order to gain further insight. Excellent. What else do we have here? If I go back, let's use another arithmetic equation here. Maybe I want to know what percentage of our monthly rent is deposit that we're asked is the deposit. So we're going to say, I want to know the deposit amount. What's that as a proportion of the rent that we're asking someone to put down? And we're going to say, and we're going to call this, maybe I'll just call it deposit ratio for now. So what I want to see from this is what's the proportion essentially. Okay, and we can see there that, but if we look initially at this, this isn't very easy on the eye to read, right? So we need to make this much more easier to interpret. So how do we do that? Right. So for me, that's pretty hard to interpret what our deposit ratio is as a proportion of our rent per month. But now we're going to take our skills to another level. So what I'm going to say here is we're going to use another function, aggregation. We're going to use the round function. Okay. So I want you to round up this, the deposit amount as divided by the rental price. We use the asterisk. We're using another arithmetic operator. We're using the asterisk, which means multiply by 100. So what this does is shift the decimal place 2 places. Okay, that's what that does. And now we can have it as deposit ratio. And now what we said is to round it up. So as this is 16.6, this will go to 17%. As you can see, this is 0.166. This will also go to 17%. This will go to 33%. So we're using a combination of aggregation functions here and arithmetic functions. Okay. So if I run this now, and this now should work. Oh no, it hasn't worked. And the reason why this has not worked is because I haven't said how I want to round this. So we put a comma. Then we put a 2, close the bracket, now it will come up with the correct answer. I still have an error. And I actually know exactly what the error is. I wonder if any of you guys can spot it too. I'm actually missing a bracket, okay? So what I need to do is put another bracket in here, okay? Because deposit amount divided by rent per month is one bracket. Okay, but then I'm using the round function, but I want to round everything that you can see here. Okay, and that's why before this equation didn't make sense. If I run it again, now it works. Excellent. Okay, so you can see now what our deposit is as a proportion of our rent per month. Okay, so just to go through that again, we're using a combination of aggregation functions. I want to round, open bracket, I want to round deposit amount versus as a proportion of our rent. We multiply, so the asterisk means multiply here, by 100, because remember, without the multiplication, this would be reading as 0.16, and that's hard for us to interpret. So it shifted decimal place 2 places, so we get 16%. We're rounding it to 2. Hence why we see, if you recall, it was 0.1666. So that's why now we see 67. We're rounding it to 2, close bracket. We're using an alias here because it's very hard to know what this referred to unless we gave it a name. And there we have it. Okay, brilliant. So well done, guys. That sums up how we can use aggregation functions and arithmetic equations here. So just to recap, we can use max, we can use min, we can use sum, we can use average, we can use count, we can use round in our equations. Well, that's not aggregation, but we can use round. Arithmetics we can use plus, we can use minus, we can use multiplication, we can also do division in SQL. All of these things we can do just like as if we were using Microsoft Excel. So you probably can start to see now, SQL is quite a powerful tool. There's quite a lot of things we can do. Well done. That's the end of chapter 4. We've got one more thing I want to show you in this introduction to SQL tutorial. We're going to start working on some joins and how we can combine some of these tables. But you guys are doing great so far. Okay, final chapter, joins. So let me give you some context before we start. So basically, a join is about appending or combining two tables together based on if they match a criteria. So the easiest way I can think of it is like the old game Snap. Okay, if one card is identical to the other card, then you have Snap. That's exactly what's happening here. So I have this table here, the lease table, which gives me all the information about the lease contract. Okay, now we have this field called tenant number. We also have in the actual tenants table, given information about those tenants within those rental properties, we also have a field called tenant number. So what we're basically saying is that if the tenant number, if the numbers in our tenants table is identical to the number in our tenant number within the lease table, then give me all of this information combined, right? So how do we do that? Right, this is where a join comes in very, very useful, right? So first I'm going to do is select, and I'm going to use the alias here, which means for the T, and you're going to see in a minute how we've implemented that. Give me everything from the tenants table. Give me everything from the lease table. Where do I want it from? I want it from the tenants table first. right? And then I'm going to, in the join, I'm going to add to the tenants table the lease table based on the criteria that the tenant number is equal to the lease tenant's number, right? So exactly what I explained to you guys at the beginning. If this number in the tenants table equals the number in the tenant's number in the lease table, then give me everything. There you have it. Excellent. But okay, maybe now we can again use some of the skills that we learned earlier on in the course. I only want you to give me the information about the tenants and the lease at a specific for a specific tenant. So maybe I want to know about just the tenancies of James Jackson. Well, what we do now is we can add our where clause, and we can say where the tenant number, let's say to be even more precise, where the tenant number, so from the tenants table, so we know exactly where it's coming from, is equal to 3003. So now what I'm saying is give me all the information from both tables, append them together, but only where for a tenant James Jackson, who has the tenant number 3003. Let's give it a go. There you have it, guys. And just like that, that's how we can use a join. We can also use the where clause to essentially give us the exact information when we're combining specific tables. Well done. I've got one more thing to show you guys now, and that's how we can do basically a left or right join. Okay, the final thing I want to show you guys is like a left join, right? And left and right joins work pretty much the same way. So like I won't do both, but basically, let's say once again, I've got my tenant information, okay? So these are where all my tenants are based. Information about my tenants. And maybe I've got all the information about the owners of these properties, right? But I only want to find the information about owners and tenants who are based in maybe the same town, okay? So essentially what I can do here is a left join, right? So what I'm basically going to do is say, give me all the tenants information, okay? And I want you to join it on where the owners are also from a similar town. So how does this look, right? So the way that I can do this is, and I've got this query here that I can run, is basically what I'm saying is join, give me all of that, my tenants information, yeah, based on all the tenants. So if the town here matches with the town here, then give me all this information. And where it doesn't match, essentially, so for example, where we have like T-Town is Sunderland, let's say we have Durham here, for example, we have tenants in Durham, but we don't have any owners of properties in Durham. What will happen for all these columns here? They will just be null. So it will still append postcode, ownership fee, ownership area, ownership street. But for where we don't have an owner in the very specific town of Durham, the columns will be blank for those specific column headings. So let's see how this works. There you have it. You can see here exactly what I mean. So essentially what's happening here, for where we have information on our owners and our tenants where they match this criteria, you can see here we have all of the relevant information, okay, except for where obviously in one of the tables it was null already. And for places such as, let's take Durham, so we have here James Jackson has a property in Durham, okay, but in terms of owners, we don't have any of them who are based in the town of Durham. So what will happen for that row is, let's say, for example, postcode, ownership fee, ownership area, it will be null because we don't have that information to hand. So, and if we filter now, so if I filter, I'm going to make this a lot easier for you guys to understand. If I filter now, maybe on, if I put in here where, let's say 𝐷𝐻𝐾𝐿, where let's go 𝐷𝐻𝐾𝐿 equals, let's say Durham, just to make my point easier for you guys, you'll see it comes back blank. Right, guys, you can have a massive round of applause. You guys have officially completed your beginners SQL course. So you guys have done really well. You've gone from basically novices to definitely being able to run some basic queries. So now in your job, or if you're going for applying for something, have the confidence to know that you guys can call yourself entry-level SQL programmers. So just to recap a few of the things that we've gone through today. We went through exactly how to create your database. So we created some tables. We then went into select statements, how we can get an overview of all of our data, how we can look at picking up very specific aspects of our data, how we can collect unique values. We then went into chapter 2, or chapter 3 should I say, which is about organizing our data, being able to sort our data by using the where clause, by using the group by, the order by function. We then started to learn about how we could do some aggregation and some arithmetic equations. So we looked at how we could add things together, how we can divide, how we could sum things, find our min and max value ranges, take our averages, okay? And you guys also learned today how to do a join. So how we can basically combine data together. Now I'm telling you guys that if you guys could drill down on these basics, you will 100% be able to do some queries and nail your first job if that's what you're doing. Or you can definitely say that you've completed some CPD. Now, I'm going to leave in the description here the file, the SQL script, so that you guys can actually use that in whichever application of SQL you're using, whether that's SQL Server, whether that's SQLite. I'm using Postgres here, or Snowflake. Use that as a base of tables to create your database, and then I would encourage you guys just to have a play, okay? So lots of what we've learned on this course, try and apply that, get different scenarios, and just try and play away, right? But the point is now, you guys can call yourself SQL programmers. Well done, super proud of yourselves. Give yourself a round of applause and a pat on the back. If you want, try and make sure that you go through this course in chunks. So don't try and do everything all at once. Maybe do each section on a different day or on a different week. But for sure, within a month, you guys will be able to smash this course and do so much more. Please do, if you did enjoy this course, make sure that you like and subscribe. It's really important so that we can grow the channel. Most importantly, I'm going to have an intermediate level and an advanced level SQL courses coming your way. And like this one, they are all going to be free. The mistake I made, or not so much mistake, is that you don't necessarily have to go to university or necessarily pay for certain courses. A lot of this information is out there on the internet. I want to help you guys to grow, to be better practitioners. Please feel free, if you want, to drop me a comment, if you want to get in touch with me and you want some mentorship or any other services. But guys, well done. We've officially made it. You guys, welcome to the SQL Programming Club. See you guys soon.